Let me be honest with you. I almost made a $300 mistake last year. I was standing in the plumbing aisle at the hardware store, ready to buy a brand new toilet because mine wouldn't stop running. Kept me up at night. That constant hissing sound. But before I loaded that heavy box onto my cart, I decided to pop the tank lid off and take a closer look. Turns out the whole problem was a worn-out flapper that cost me $3.80. Took 5 minutes to fix. So before you go spending hundreds on a new toilet, watch this video first. I'm going to walk you through the most common toilet problems and show you exactly how to fix each one for just a few dollars. And stick around to the end because I've got a plumber's trick that will make any toilet flush like it's brand new. Let's get into it. Here's the thing most people don't realize. Toilets are actually incredibly simple machines. There are really only a handful of parts inside that tank. And when something goes wrong, it's almost always one of those parts, not the toilet itself. I've seen homeowners throw away perfectly good toilets that had 20 or 30 more years of life in them, all because they didn't know how to diagnose a $10 fix. So let's make sure that doesn't happen to you. The first thing we need to do is figure out what's actually going on with your toilet. And to do that, you need to understand what's happening inside that tank. Go ahead and lift the lid off the back of your toilet and set it somewhere safe. Porcelain is heavy and it will crack if you drop it, so set it on a towel on the floor. Now look inside. You're going to see a few key parts. Down at the bottom center, there's a round rubber disc sitting over a hole. That's your flapper. When you flush, that flapper lifts up, lets water rush down into the bowl, and then drops back down to seal the tank so it can refill. Connected to that flapper is a small chain that runs up to your flush handle. On the left side, you'll see a tall vertical assembly with a float on it. That's your fill valve. Its job is to refill the tank after each flush and shut off the water once it reaches the right level. There's also an overflow tube, which is that open pipe standing straight up in the middle of the tank. If the water level gets too high, it drains down that tube instead of flooding your bathroom floor. Now here's how to figure out which problem you have. If your toilet runs constantly or cycles on and off by itself, that's almost always the flapper or the fill valve. If your flush is weak and lazy, that's usually a water level issue or clogged rim jets. And if your toilet rocks back and forth, or you're seeing water pooling around the base, that's a wax ring or loose bolt situation. Let's fix each one. The most common toilet problem in the world is a running toilet, and 9 times out of 10, the fix is replacing that little rubber flapper we just talked about. Over time, the rubber gets stiff, warped, or coated in mineral buildup, and it stops making a good seal against the flush valve seat. Water slowly leaks past it into the bowl, and the fill valve keeps kicking on to replace what's lost. That's what causes that phantom flushing sound you hear in the middle of the night. Here's exactly how to fix it. First, reach behind the toilet near the bottom left and turn the shutoff valve clockwise until it stops. Then flush the toilet to drain most of the water out of the tank. You can soak up whatever is left with an old towel or a big sponge. Now reach down and unhook the old flapper. Most flappers have 2 little ears that snap onto pegs on either side of the overflow tube. Just pinch them and pull. Unhook the chain from the flush handle arm, and the whole thing comes right out. take that old flapper with you to the hardware store so you can match the size. Most toilets use a 2-inch or 3-inch flapper. The universal flappers you'll find for $3 to $5 work on almost everything. Snap the new one onto those same pegs, hook the chain back onto the handle arm, and here's the important part. You want just a tiny bit of slack in that chain, about 1/2 inch. Too much slack, and the flapper won't lift high enough for a full flush. Too tight, and it won't seat properly, and you're right back where you started. Turn the water back on and let the tank fill. Now, here's a great test to make sure your new flapper is sealing properly. Drop 5 or 6 drops of food coloring into the tank water. Don't flush. Wait about 15 minutes and then check the bowl. If the water in the bowl is still clear, your new flapper is sealing perfectly. If you see color in the bowl, the flapper isn't seating right, and you may need to adjust the chain or try a different size. By the way, if you're finding this advice helpful, you should know it's just a small sample of what I've put into my new guide, The Ultimate Plumbing Playbook. It's packed with step-by-step instructions for hundreds of repairs that can save you thousands. To grab your copy, you can scan the QR code on the screen right now, or just use the first link in the description below. All right, let's continue. Now, let's talk about a weak or incomplete flush. You press the handle and the water just kind of swirls lazily without any real power behind it. Most people assume the toilet is worn out, but what's really happening is one of two things. First, check the water level in your tank. There should be a line marked on the inside of the tank or on the overflow tube. The water should sit about 1 inch below the top of that overflow tube. If it's lower than that, your flush doesn't have enough volume behind it to create a strong siphon. You can adjust this by turning the screw on top of your fill valve. Clockwise usually raises the water level. Counterclockwise lowers it. Small adjustments here, maybe a quarter turn at a time, then flush and check. Second, and this is one most people never think about, your rim jets might be clogged. Those are the small angled holes underneath the rim of your toilet bowl. Over the years, mineral deposits from hard water slowly clog those openings, and your flush loses power because the water can't enter the bowl the way it's designed to. Grab a small hand mirror and hold it under the rim so you can see those holes. If they look crusty or partially blocked, take a piece of thin wire or an unfolded paper clip and gently poke each one clear. Be careful not to scratch the porcelain. You'll be amazed at how much stronger your flush becomes after cleaning those out. If your toilet is rocking back and forth when you sit on it, or worse, if you're seeing water around the base after you flush, don't panic. This is usually one of two things, and neither one means you need a new toilet. First, check if the bolts at the base of the toilet are loose. There are 2 bolts, one on each side, covered by small plastic caps. Pop those caps off and try to snug the bolts down with an adjustable wrench. Go slowly here, a quarter turn at a time, alternating side to side. Porcelain will crack if you over-tighten, and a cracked base really does mean a new toilet. If snugging those bolts stops the rocking and the leak, you're done. But if the toilet is still rocking or leaking after tightening the bolts, you're looking at a failed wax ring. That's the thick wax gasket that sits between the bottom of your toilet and the drain flange in the floor. Replacing it costs about $5 to $8 and takes maybe 45 minutes, but I won't sugarcoat it. This one involves lifting the toilet off the floor, and a porcelain toilet can weigh 50 to 60 pounds. If your knees or back give you trouble, grab a helper for this step. Turn off the water and flush the tank empty. Disconnect the supply line from the bottom of the tank. Remove those 2 base bolts completely. Now rock the toilet gently to break the old wax seal and lift straight up. Set the toilet on its side on an old towel or piece of cardboard. Scrape off all the old wax from both the bottom of the toilet and the floor flange using a putty knife. Press your new wax ring onto the toilet outlet on the bottom, not onto the floor flange. Then lift the toilet and lower it straight down onto the bolts, pressing firmly with your body weight to compress the wax. Tighten the bolts evenly, alternating sides, quarter turn at a time. Reconnect the supply line, turn the water on, and flush a few times to check for leaks. Now, if you've replaced the flapper and your toilet is still running, the fill valve is probably the culprit. You'll know because the water in the tank never quite stops flowing, or the fill valve makes a whining or hissing sound that won't quit. A universal fill valve costs about $8 to $12 and fits almost every toilet made in the last 50 years. Shut off the water and flush the tank empty. Put a small bucket or some old towels under the supply line connection because a little water will spill when you disconnect it. Unscrew the supply line, then remove the lock nut on the bottom of the tank that holds the old fill valve in place. Lift the old valve out. Drop the new one in, adjust the height so it sits about an inch above the overflow tube, and tighten the lock nut hand tight plus another half turn with pliers. Reconnect the supply line, turn the water on, and adjust the float so the water level sits about 1 inch below the top of the overflow tube. Most modern fill valves have a simple clip or screw that lets you set the float height in seconds. Let's talk about some common problems you might run into and how to handle them. If the bolts at the base of your toilet are rusted or stripped and won't turn, don't force them. You'll crack the porcelain. Use a small hacksaw blade to carefully cut through the bolt just above the nut. Replacement bolt sets cost about $2. If you see water around the base of your toilet, but it only happens on humid days, that might not be a leak at all. Cold water in the tank can cause condensation on the outside of the porcelain, just like a glass of ice water on a summer day. Wipe it up and check again on a dry day before you start pulling the toilet. If your supply line drips where it connects to the shutoff valve or the tank, try tightening the connection 1/8 of a turn. If that doesn't stop it, replace the supply line entirely. Braided stainless steel supply lines are the way to go, and they cost about $6 to $8. If your handle feels loose or you have to jiggle it to stop the water, tighten the nut inside the tank that holds the handle in place. Here's the trick, though. That nut is reverse threaded. You turn it clockwise to loosen and counterclockwise to tighten. It's the opposite of what you'd expect, and it trips everybody up. And finally, when should you actually replace the toilet? If the porcelain is cracked, especially on the base or the tank, that's a replacement. If you have a very old toilet that uses 3.5 to 5 gallons per flush, replacing it with a modern 1.6 gallon model will save you real money on your water bill over time. But if the porcelain is in good shape, almost everything else can be fixed. Now, for that bonus tip I promised at the beginning. If you want your toilet to flush like it just came out of the box. Here's a trick the pros use. Get a gallon of plain white vinegar. Turn off the water to the toilet and flush to empty the tank. Now pour that entire gallon of vinegar into the tank and let it sit overnight, at least 8 to 10 hours. The vinegar will dissolve mineral deposits inside the tank, inside the fill valve, and most importantly, it will soak down through those rim jets we talked about earlier and break up all that buildup that's been choking your flush for years. In the morning, turn the water back on, let the tank fill, and flush 3 or 4 times to rinse everything out. I do this once a year on every toilet in my house, and the difference is night and day. It's like getting a brand new toilet without spending a dime, maybe $2 for the vinegar. Before you go, I want to make sure you know about my complete guide, the Ultimate Plumbing Playbook. It goes way deeper than we can in a single video, with 85 pages covering everything from clearing any clog to replacing your own water heater. If you want to stop wasting money on simple fixes, this book is for you. Just scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the description to get your copy. Thanks for watching. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one.